Happy Friday, newsies! It is I, Becca Lori Hector, here with your next installment of Neurodiversity Newsstand. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, this is Neurodiversity Newsstand, the vlog. It is my channel. I also do a live stream on this channel on Tuesdays. And on Fridays, like today, I do Neurodiversity Newsstand, which comes from my Facebook and LinkedIn groups, Neurodiversity Newsstand, where we share the latest and greatest in neurodiversity news and talk about it. So I come on Fridays to bring you the summary. And that's why I'm here today. So as you can see, I'm sporting my Spectrum Women shirt because I'm also going to be recording the monthly Asking Spectrum Women as soon as I'm done with this. But I like to do Newsstand first when I'm recording because it's my routine, right? Every Friday I do Newsstand. I only do Asking Spectrum Women once a month. And I've already had kind of a crazy week in terms of routine because this week was my birthday. So on Tuesday it was my birthday. I did a live stream anyway. It was really fun to share part of my birthday with the people who I spend like half hour, whatever it is, a week with, who come to my live stream. And I wanted to make sure that we all got to check in with each other and talk a little bit about birthdays and how much I really struggle with them and have always struggled with them, and how I'm starting, and I started it a couple of years ago, to try and explore kind of celebrating my birthday a little bit because I haven't done it in a really, really long time. And the reason for that is because I struggled as a kid with birthdays. I always had terribly traumatic birthdays, and it was painful and made me cry a lot and stuff like that. And so as an adult, I kind of just stopped celebrating them. But I am now kind of like in this new place in my life, and I'm trying to be as authentic as possible, and I'm trying to move through whatever challenges I have with certain things. And so being that birthdays have been a challenge for me, I figured it was time I stopped kind of ignoring them. It's not the only time that I celebrate. I also celebrate in May because that's my Spectrumversary. That's when I got my diagnosis, and I like to celebrate that because it was a really important kind of transition in my life, and so I do celebrate that stuff too. But I don't have a trauma attachment thing with my autism diagnosis, but the birthday situation has been a trauma my whole life, and so I definitely have trauma with that. But this year was great. This year I actually had a fantastic birthday, and it's the first time I've really been able to say it in a long time. Antonio made me a birthday cake. I had my first birthday cake in, I want to say, decade at least. What else did we do? A lot of it was just spending time with them. I got a really beautiful day, so I spent time with my dogs in the yard, and I got a little color on my face. I don't know if you can tell because I'm always so blanched out here because the sunlight hits me in the face. What else? I don't know. So I had like a fun birthday, and I really did, and I didn't cry this birthday, and I saw the first hummingbird of the year this year on my birthday, so I'm excited. It was good, and so next year I'm kind of looking forward to next year, which will be interesting. Next year is 45. Interesting. Aging is interesting. I don't mind the getting old piece. I really don't. What I'm struggling with now is sort of kind of a regression of symptoms, I guess. I'm having some of that stuff change. But other than that, I mean, I don't mind the getting old part. I just really hated the birthday part. So in any case, I worked through some of that. I had a great birthday this week, but it definitely took me off my routine, right? I still did my live stream, but it kind of just interrupted everything. And so what I'm finding now is, as I sit here on this Friday, I have quite a few things that I promised people for this week that I'm going to have to push through this afternoon because I have to do them. Anyway, so that's where I'm kind of at. So maybe after I get the stuff done that I have to do this afternoon, I will be able to relax for the weekend. But before I can do any of that, I have to give you guys the news. It's time. It's time to talk news. So again, we're in this weird whatever shutdown. It's been the most odd April ever for those of us who do advocacy and everything. It's just been so strange, very strange. In any case, but we still had some news come out. We had some stuff to talk about, some interesting things. Nothing stupendous, and of course not on the volume we're used to seeing, but we had some good stuff to talk about. So let's get to the news. Let's talk about that stuff. To open up, I want to start out with a New York Times article. It was a lovely memorial, like overview piece on Mel Baggs. We had talked about Mel when Mel passed. I want to be able to use the pronouns correctly. I'm trying very hard not to mess up people's pronouns, but I sometimes concentrate so hard on not messing up the pronouns that I forget what I'm going to talk about, and it makes my sentences not make sense. So excuse me if I say things incorrectly. But in any case, Mel passed away a couple weeks ago, and now there's this lovely kind of not an obituary, but sort of a review piece about Mel's career. I'm sure there's a word for this kind of piece. I just don't happen to know it at the moment. But please take a look at that. You'll get to see more about Mel's work, kind of an overview of that kind of stuff, and just take a moment to really acknowledge and advocate that really helped us out as a community. Again, in the New York Times pop in this week, I guess, needing, here we go again. We'll try that. So in the New York Times this week, we had another article about kind of what we're seeing in employment as a result of the whole COVID situation. And what we're seeing is a new demand for at-home workers, which means a new opportunity for folks with disabilities. So this article was called "Needing At-Home Workers, Call Centers Turn to People with Disabilities." So of course the greater disability community is now benefiting from this needing people to be able to work from home, which is not something that people have needed before, but definitely as folks with disabilities, we've looked for opportunities to work from home for quite some time. So it's nice to see kind of the supply and demand kind of shifting a little bit, and it'll be nice to see if it kind of sticks that way. It'll be interesting to kind of watch how the rest of this all plays out and kind of what ends up being part of a new normal that wasn't normal before, and what stuff returns to the way that it was before. And I am hoping, dreaming every night that all this opening that has happened in employment for folks with disabilities absolutely sticks around. I really hope that it does. Okay, moving along. On theconversation.com, really interesting article. We talked about it a lot in group. A lot of people were interested. I shared it in both groups, and it was heavy in both groups, on LinkedIn and on Facebook. And it's called "Research on Facial Expressions Challenges the Way We Think About Autism." And basically what it is a research study that was done that we actually, autistics and neurotypicals, actually speak basically a different language. Which is something that autistic advocates have been talking about for a really long time. I often say I'm a brain language translator, right? I've been masking, coping, whatever we want to call it, pretending not to be autistic because I didn't know I was autistic. I don't know what we want to name it, but because we've already had to adapt for it's been required of us to adapt to the neurotypical way of thinking, being, breathing, whatever, we are able to more quickly and adapt more quickly to their way of thinking. I find it is almost impossible for neurotypicals to swing the other way. It just happens to be easier for us because it's been required of us our entire lives. It's kind of like learning a second language. If you start learning a second language as a kid, it's much easier than if you try to learn it as an adult. So we kind of have an advantage in that. But what the article goes on to say is that because we speak this very different brain language, we also make different facial expressions when we're speaking. So the idea that autistics can't read facial expressions, and the idea that we don't make the correct facial expressions, or we can't make the correct facial expressions, and notice the word correct, we quickly find out there is no correct, and that neurotypicals struggle equally as much to read our facial expressions and that kind of stuff. And so what these scientists are talking about is that we actually make different facial expressions. And so it's really very much a translation problem. It's a language problem. But when you look at it that way quickly, one being better than the other, more right than the other, more correct than the other, shoop, out the window, right? And that's the opportunity that this research is giving us. And we've all been saying it for a long time. It's really great to see it in writing and not in anecdotal stuff and being backed by research. So I was excited about that piece of information that came out, and a bunch of you guys were too. We talked about it. It was liked a lot, shared a lot, so definitely a reader. As always, when I talk about anything here on Neurodiversity Newsstand, a link will be shared in the description. So if you're interested in more information about any of the articles or events that I talk about, you can just look in the description of this video and take the link right there. But so you'll be able to read more about this research piece in there and definitely get in on the conversation that we're all having about it. Moving along, more science in sciencemagazine.org. We had a lovely highlight of Dora Raymaker and also Christina Nicolaitis. They are out of the West Coast on Seattle here in the United States, around there, and they have been working together for quite some time to bring the community into research, and this was a lovely highlight piece. And by community, I mean the stakeholders, the autistic adults, and the folks that work with us. So Dora and Christina put together this new thing along with their journal, Autism in Adulthood, which is fantastic. And they are working at Aspire, which is their little research group, and they are having autistic adults be required parts of the research teams that are working on research on autistics. And we know how important it is for our voices to be heard. And so that is what the article is called in Science Mag. Autistic voices heard. Should be heard, rather, and that autistic adults join research teams. And when we join research teams, we're hoping, and we do, shift the focus of the research that's being done. The hope is that we start to do some more research on the things that autistics themselves care about, so that we can start to get the supports and services that we've been asking for. So this is the beginning of it. And I was so excited to see them highlighted and so excited to have it being talked about. I would definitely take a look at this article. If you haven't heard of either of them, or Aspire, or Autism in Adulthood, go look them up. You can get to a bunch of them through here, or you can just Google Dora Raymaker. It will all come up. So I would definitely take a look at that article. It really talks about how important and how valued we should be on research teams. Research teams. Woo! Losing the voice. Bloop. Moving on. This week from the Autistic Science Lady, we got a fantastic blog. It was called How the Golden Rule Harms Autistic People. And the golden rule being, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Well, of course, that gets a bunch of people in trouble when they try to work with autistics, because if you're neurotypical and you are doing what you think you would want to be treated like, chances are it is not the way that an autistic person wants to be treated. And so we sort of have our own golden rule, like do unto others as they want to be treated, right? Not how we want to be treated. And so that's what this piece is about from the Autistic Science Lady. A really good piece. I love the way it was framed, and I think it's super interesting and for sure something that you guys should read about. Wow, with the voice situation. All right. LinkedIn. Victoria Bagnall. This was another great blog. It was on LinkedIn only, so if you, I think I shared it into the Facebook group, but if I didn't, it was on LinkedIn. I can't believe I'm losing my voice, you guys. I have to record another whole video. Okay, so Victoria Bagnall, the trauma of living with executive functioning challenges. And I thought this was really interesting. So what she talks about here is how society's view of EF challenges and of, in general, neurodivergence is skewed, I want to say, I guess. And the challenge of coming out in an environment like that results in trauma. So what we need to do to cut down that trauma is to stop having this stigma, right? And it comes from an idea that she was presented with about the LGBTQ community. And I think it was an interesting thing because I often parallel the growth of the autism community with the LGBT community. So I was glad to see somebody else doing it as well. I would take a look at this article. It was another good one that framed things in a way that it's been a long time coming, I guess is what I want to say. So take a look at that article. I thought it was really, really great blog that she wrote, actually. And then continuing, in the charity report this week, there was an interview with Sarah Kurchuk, who is the author of wow, not reading my own pieces here. It was an interview with Sarah Kurchuk, who wrote the book. I overcame my autism, and all I got was this lousy anxiety disorder. I know a bunch of us have struggled with the title of her book, but she is one of us nonetheless, and she has shared her story to help our voices grow. And so Sarah Kurchuk was interviewed in the charity report, and they titled the piece, Moving Autism Further into the Public Eye. And that's what we all want to do, right? That's why we're all advocating and trying to be out and proud to just kind of remove that stigma by normalizing ourselves, and just being out there and being talked about and talking about ourselves, and us having our own pride. And so it was a nice little interview they did. Obviously, they're pushing the book. The book is out now, and it is by Sarah Kurchuk. So I am sharing that with you guys. Moving on to like entertainment-y stuff, which I guess the book was technically the first part of entertainment-y stuff. A book is entertainment. So a podcast for you to listen to. Autism Grown Up. Autism Grown Up is a fantastic little collective. It is run by Tara Regan. She does great interviews on her podcast, Autism Grown Up. It is her 58th episode, and here on her 58th episode, she has another amazing person on, Rachel Worsley, who is the head of Neurodiversity Media, and she's putting together the NeuroWork newsletter and what that took. And so it's a nice interview between the two of them, both of them creating materials and resources for the adult autism community. And I loved the interview. I had the honor of being on Tara's podcast. It'll be coming out later in May. And I really had a good time with her. And so I think you guys will really enjoy the podcast. You can, of course, go back to older episodes and hear some with some other folks. But I liked this one a lot, and it was a chance to highlight both Tara and Rachel. So I hope you guys hear the shout out coming to your way. Check out the interview, you guys, and also check out the Autism Grown Up community. So they've now created an online community for Autism Grown Up where the adult autistics can get together, share resources, make friendships, network, all of that fun stuff. If that's something that you're interested in, just Google Autism Grown Up community or take the link that I will give you in the description of the video. Woot! Moving on. What else do I have for you this week, you guys? Webinars galore. Okay, so with this whole situation, COVID, and everybody being at home, almost everything was everything was canceled for April, but everything after is now being moved virtual, which makes it extremely convenient and also a little more affordable for those of us on the spectrum so we can attend. So I'm going to be sharing those things with you now. Some of them are free because they're online, and some of them are low cost. So first one up is from the British Psychological Society. It's a webinar on neurodiversity and employment forum, assistive tech breaking down barriers to work. So we're talking about employment and assistive technology, and they are doing that on May 18th. And so I will give you a link to that, of course, in the description. Another one coming up for you in June. It is the Milestone Autism Resource National Conference. They've gone virtual for their national conference this year in June. So it's June 11th through June 16th. Good 5 days you've got going on there. And I will give you guys a link, of course, to that. And that's coming up in June. And lastly, in terms of webinars, the Autism Science Foundation put together a webinar series on COVID-19. And so they're just discussing kind of how it's affecting the autism community surrounding certain areas. So they've done them on research, on the telehealth situation, on self-care in this time. And I was also honored to be on a panel that they did on employment. And so I will give you guys the link to the whole webinar series. There are a few more still coming out, but they were nice. They kind of highlighted the struggles of what's going on within our community as a result of COVID. And it's free. Free is good. So go ahead and educate yourself a little about on the topics that you think are interesting. And of course, check out the employment one because of moi. Thank you. Okay. What else did I do this week? A few other things, but the one I want to give a shout out to is to Cassidy. Cassidy is also a member of the Autism Grown Up community, and she is doing a podcast now. So her podcast is called Cassidy's Turner Syndrome and Asperger's Syndrome Chat. Cassidy has both Turner Syndrome and Asperger's Syndrome, and I had the honor of being on. So I will share that link with you guys of mine, and then you can, of course, listen to all of her other podcasts. So congratulations, Cassidy. She's new to the Neurodiversity Newsstand community, so welcome to the group as well. Giant shout out to you, and thank you for an amazing interview. I appreciate it. And that's really it. That's it for the news. But I want to close and talk about a good meme that was popular this week. I happen to have shared it. I pulled it off of Instagram, and you guys really responded to it. So I want to talk about it because I want to talk about the message behind it. So shout out to Doodlebot Illustrations on Instagram. Doodlebot, I love most of your memes. I do. But this one was fantastic. It was basically about unmasking. It was about how the world asks us to put on a brave face, but how very much more courage it takes to take that brave face off and show your authentic self. And I want to give a shout out to all of you for this April. I'm recording this on May 1st, so April is officially over. So for the weirdest April ever, shout out to all my other fellow autistics out there who were out loud and proud this April about their autism, and that they took off their brave face and showed their authentic and vulnerable face to the world. You are the bravest, most courageous people that I know. I know how hard it is because I did it, and I continue to do it every day. And knowing that every day there are more and more of you standing around me doing the same gives me goosebumps in a way that I can't even explain to you. So keep it up, you guys. I'm really proud of everybody this April. I'm proud of what we managed to do, even though we're all struggling with our own pieces of what's going on right now in the world. So kudos to everyone who took off their brave face and put on their real face this April. Love you guys. I hope to see you next Friday with another installment of Neurodiversity Newsstand. If you want to hang out with me a little more than that and a little more casually than this, please feel free to come by on Tuesdays to this channel at 2:20 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, Colorado time, where I come to you guys with like a 20-minute live stream just to kind of cover a topic or two and talk about how we're kind of moving through the world. It has a nice little support group vibe to it right now, and it's right now called Becca's Backyard Live, but it is turning out that doing things outside with the internet is not really working out for everybody. So it might change title, but basically it's my little live stream support group that I do every Tuesday at 2:20 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So if you subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell, you'll get notifications about the live stream as well as the next installment of Neurodiversity Newsstand. That's it for me, you guys. I'm going to go push out a really, really crazy heavy afternoon of work and get it out so I can enjoy my Saturday and Sunday. I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, a thumbs down if you hated it, and of course, let me know in the comments whether or not I missed something I shouldn't have missed, or if there's something you'd like me to share. You can also always email me directly at info@beccalaurie.com. That's it for me. I will see you guys next week. Have a good one, you guys. And take off that brave face. Your real face is much more important.